Hello. So here we are. It's the last session. This is the last talk. We have 2 reviewers left. I hope they will be kind to me and my other presenters here. But today I'm going to try to sum up what we heard throughout the course of the last couple of days and put it in the context of higher education. Now, I'm going to be talking about public higher education, and public higher education is a little bit different. We think about it at Arizona State University as having really 3 important dimensions. First, that we measure ourselves by who we include and not by who we exclude. We measure ourselves by who we include and not by who we exclude. And we focus on the success of our students. Second, that we do research that has public value. In other words, it's use-inspired, it has outcomes. And finally, we help to serve the communities in which we exist, that we're active in our communities. We don't put a wall up around ourselves. So today I'm going to have 2 parts to my presentation. The first part's going to be on what I think are the trends affecting higher education. And then the second part will be on, well, how do we address it? How do we accommodate that? How do we deal with that? My first part will be very familiar to you because what I will say reflects not only what our 2 previous speakers talked about, but what we've been hearing for the last 2 days. So let's talk first about the learners. What do learners look like in 2025? First of all, what we're seeing in the States in particular, it may not be the case here in Korea, but in the United States, we're seeing a big gap between those students coming into college who are over-prepared. They have taken college courses in high school. They have taken edX courses. They've been online. They actually come into college with their whole freshman year completed. And you heard John talk about a program that we're doing with edX where you can complete your freshman year even before you get to college. It causes us to rethink what a college education means in terms of a 4-year program, because many of these students can get through college in 3 years or 2 years, and that's very different. Now that's juxtaposed, that is opposite of other students we see coming in to college that are completely underprepared. They don't have math skills, they don't have science skills. We have to spend a great deal of time working with them so they can become college learners. And that disparity we see increasing, certainly in the States and I think around the globe. Second, we're seeing special communities of learners. We see learners not only coming through that want a 4-year college degree, we see learners coming through who work at corporations and want to learn together. We see governmental units come to get special training. We see community, neighborhoods coming to learn together around certain topics. So we see this emergence of communities of learners. One thing that we're seeing also in the States is an interesting phenomenon, again, not so much prevalent here in Korea, but the number of students who have started college but never finished. The numbers are staggering. There are 30 million students in the United States who started college but never finished. It's an incredible opportunity for us to take those set of learners, many of whom have had things come up in their life, were unable to complete college, to take that group and figure out how we can get them through and get them to finish up a degree. And by the way, they're of all ages. They're not just of students who are 18 to 23, they're of all ages who have not completed college. Of course, what you've heard throughout the course of the last 2 days is that our next generation is very digitally engaged. They're highly technology enabled. And as you also heard, and John talked about this and we heard from others, there's this intense interest in not just getting a college degree, but in getting certificates, badges, micromasters, all sorts of opportunities to do something other than simply get a college degree. And one of the things, the theme that I've heard throughout the course of yesterday and today is that we have to think about higher education, not just for 4-degree programs for students who are 18 to 23, but that we are lifelong learners. And the Pew Institute just recently did a survey, and certainly most Americans, I believe most Koreans believe, that they have to learn throughout life. We can't stop learning as soon as you get your degree. You have to have the capacity to provide knowledge, to provide insights throughout your life. So what will faculty, what will teachers, what will professors look like in 2025? First, very interesting, they're going to be much more transdisciplinary. So transdisciplinary means that they intersect from different disciplines, but also can connect that to the outside world, to what in the university we call the real world. And so there's got many faculty members now are getting multiple degrees in multiple disciplines. In fact, at Arizona State University, we've completely realigned our university so it's much more interdisciplinary, where faculty members from the social sciences are talking to chemists, where engineers are talking to humanists, because we think that what happens that's interesting in the world happens when at the intersection of when two different disciplines get together. And we think that's where most innovation occurs, and we think it's where most interesting things happen in the academy. Second, obviously, most faculty members are going to have a huge global presence because of their ability to touch many learners through digital platforms such as edX. And also, we're seeing a huge increase in the number of part-time faculty members. In fact, this is a chart from the American Association of University Professors showing that, and just follow that sort of orange bar across, and you can see that from 75 to 2015, that the percentage of faculty members who are part-time, not full-time, has risen to almost 40%. It's creating a new group of faculty members who are teaching in higher education. So one of the things that we found interesting at Arizona State University is as we went to online learning, it really got our faculty members motivated and excited. And the reason is because they're now able to touch hundreds, sometimes thousands of students. It's very different from what they were used to, which is to sit in a classroom and have 30 people that they were talking to in the classroom. Now through digital platforms, they can touch hundreds and thousands. And they're also changing the research paradigms because they have access to data that they didn't have historically. And finally, there's also become, in some respects, a greater divide between those faculty members who just teach and those that actually teach and do research. So how does technology change things? I don't have to go through these lists. You heard it all over the last couple of days. There's learning analytics, there's VR, there's augmented reality, there's digital portfolios of students being able to track all their progress as they move through their learning phases in life. There's changes in infrastructure. We heard talks about autonomous vehicles yesterday. Digitally enhanced residence hall. I'll just give you one example. We opened up a residence hall at Arizona State University this year for 1,600 freshman engineering students, 1,600 freshman engineering students. Every room in the residence hall has an Amazon Echo. And the Amazon Echo is this voice-activated device. The students, the freshman students in their dorm rooms can ask questions of their Echo about their homework assignments, about how to do engineering equations, about what the next socialism event is on campus. So these kind of devices are changing even the way we think about where students live when they're on campus. And it certainly there's a change in administration. This is where I hope we can find some efficiencies in higher education, where we can be able to automate many of these functions that are very human intensive, particularly in the area of student services. So what about finances? What's happening with the way that we fund higher education? Well, certainly there are many more public-private partnerships. In fact, I think if a decade ago you said that we would have a very deep relationship with a not-for-profit called edX, I think everybody would laugh. And now it's actually one of our most important relationships that we have. We actually have partnerships with 140 different companies at Arizona State University. Because like you heard from some of the speakers before, we think it's through partnerships that we can be more effective and we can scale higher education. We also think there's going to be more diversified sources of revenue, not only from alternative degree programs, micromasters, and certificates, but also in the way that we provide education throughout the life of a person, not just in those 4 years that they're there on campus or 6 years and for graduate school, but also throughout their life. So how do we think about taking these trends and apply them to what is happening now in higher education and what could be happening to higher education over the next decade. And so I'm going to walk you through a set of scenarios about how higher education is evolving and how I think it will evolve into the future. But there's an important point, and this is probably the most important point I'll make in my talk today. At the core of every university is the fact that we generate, we store, we synthesize, we produce knowledge. We are a knowledge production factory. One of the things that we can never do in higher education is take that core function and remove it from everything else that we try to do in terms of teaching. They fit together perfectly because at the end of the day, we are a platform. When you heard the conversations about platforms earlier today, we have a set of learners, right? We have the platform itself, which is the university, and we have content. That's our knowledge. We take our knowledge, we put it through the platform, we share it with our learners, right? But you have to have the knowledge. And so many discussions I hear about the future of higher education, I hear it only talk about how we're going to change teaching and education. We can't detach that from the fact that we have to do research, because at the end of the day, we want to teach our students about the latest innovations, about the latest ways of thinking about how our communities are built, latest scientific discoveries, the latest engineering techniques, and that all comes through research. And so at the core of university, and I think has to stay intact, is that knowledge production function. So now let's talk about what we have today in most universities. I call it the full campus immersion model. The full campus immersion models are people that students, generally 17, 18, 19 years old, they go to a physical campus. They are there for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, depending upon how long it takes to get a specific degree program. This is the model that's been around for a couple hundreds of years. What's interesting about this model is that even this model is shifting. Let me give you a couple good examples. So at Arizona State University, we give our students the option, the on-campus students, those that we are called full campus immersion, of taking their courses in the classroom, or they can take it online. Well, guess what? 50% of our students who are in the university, in dormitories, on campus, decide they want to take their courses online. Why? That's the way they learn. You know, that's what we're finding with edX. That's what we're finding with a lot of other platforms. They prefer that modality of learning. So as a result, as we think about even this current conceptualization of universities, we're going to have to begin changing the way we even deliver that kind of education. We're going to have improved digital learning spaces. We're going to have to use AI, much of what we heard about today, in terms of helping artificial intelligence, helping to advise students. We have a program in place called eAdvisor that's a very advanced program that helps relieves the load of humans to actually advise students about how to make their way through a degree program. We have to have ubiquitous ways of delivering content. We have to have very smart tutoring platforms. We have to do personalized learning. And in all of these realms, all these areas that I'll talk about, we also have to continue to focus on math and science mastery. We believe at Arizona State University that you can't walk away from some fundamental skills, and math and science is one of those. So what's the next model? So the next model that we see emerging around the globe, particularly in the United States, and particularly with for-profit companies, is what I call digital online immersion. These are students who decide to complete their degree, complete their degree online, completely online. They don't show up at a physical campus. They can do it from their home. They can do it from their workplace. And typically, these students are older students. They're the 30 million students that started college but never finished, and now they want to finish college. So they go back to an online program, they complete a degree. Right now at Arizona State University, we have 70,000 students in the full campus immersion model, that first model I talked about, and we have 30,000 students getting their degree online. And so we have about 100,000 students in that mixed modality. So these programs are important, and we see a relatively large shift in these programs from being provided not simply by for-profit universities, particularly in the States, where we've had some issues with that delivery model, but also moving towards the not-for-profit world. So what do we have to do to innovate this area, this realm of digital online education? Well, the first thing we have to do, which I think is incredibly important, you heard this from some of the speakers yesterday, is we have to make sure that we never detach that learning completely from the human element. At Arizona State University, we have what we call success coaches. And our success coaches are humans, and what they do is they track, and John was talking about that, they track everything that a student's doing when they're online. And when they find out that a student hasn't turned a project in, or they find out a student hasn't taken an exam, or they find out a student didn't participate in their online group chat session, a human texts the student and says, "Where are you? How's it going?" What we find that's very interesting is often the problem isn't with the academics. It's not with actually trying to complete the intellectual part of what they're doing. It often has to do with, my kid is sick, I can't take the exam, my mother's ill, I have to go out of town. It has to do with the human part of how people proceed through education. And in fact, many of these people had those challenges, and that's why the reason they dropped out of college. We found that that human connection is really important in what we call an online digital world. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but we found it to be critical. Second, I think we have to integrate that human-tutor interface that I was just talking about. We have to spend a lot of time worrying about real-time assessments. How are these students progressing? We have a group now that has been monitoring our online programs and comparing it with our on-campus programs. We're doing a lot of research in that area. I know edX is also doing a lot of research there about what works, what doesn't work. We just analyzed 10 million pieces of data between 365 courses for over 10,000 students, who had 5,000 had taken the same course online, 5,000 students had taken that course on ground, on campus. And what we're finding is really quite incredible. We're finding that we're actually getting better outcomes from the online programs in terms of persistence. And persistence means that they continue to move through their major. In terms of degree completion, that is, they're getting their degree completed in a quicker period of time than students that are on campus. And also in terms of outcomes, in terms of them being more interactive within their classroom environment. The third realm, the third area that we're just emerging into now is what I call the lifelong learning realm. And it really is a realm that's being fueled by platforms like edX. It makes the fundamental assumption that learning doesn't stop in higher education. When you complete your degree, that you have to continue to learn throughout life. All ages, all stages of life, all skills. It's a platform that requires us, and it's a way of thinking that requires us to be doing something very different than what most universities do today. So I know there's been some challenge culturally with raising hands, but I have a question to ask you. Okay, for those of you who have graduated from college, has your university come back to you and offered to give you another course after graduation? For those of you who graduated from college, has the university you graduated from offered you to take a course after graduation, to come back and take another course? Anybody? Isn't that odd? Think about that for a minute. Here you are, you spend all this money, all this time getting a degree. You graduate, you're 22, you're 23 years old. you're in your job, you've been in the job for 4 or 5 years. Guess what? The world is changing, right? There are new things going on, there's new things to learn. And that education, that educational institution that gave you a degree isn't there to help you continue to learn throughout life. It's ridiculous. Think about it. So this is why platforms like edX are doing so well, because they fill that gap that aren't being filled by our current universities. So we need technologies that can work at scale, because if you're going to provide lifelong learning to everybody, guess what? It has to work at scale. It has to deliver content. And then finally, the last realm that I'll talk about is the personalized learning realm. And this is something we're spending a lot of time with at Arizona State University. It's adaptive learning technologies. It's personalizing education just like we're trying to personalize medicine. It's trying to make education relevant to you individually. It's not easy. It has a lot of challenges. We're working right now on an adaptive chassis project, where if you take one adaptive learning class, it actually learns what you know. It takes your learning style, your skills, and transfers it to the next course that you're taking, so that course can be smart about what you know, what your skills are, what your background is. We call that adaptive chassis, and it's something that we think will become important as we move into the future. And there are a lot of things we need to improve personalized learning. So higher education in 2025, I think it progresses through these realms. It starts with on-campus immersion. It moves to online digital education. It moves to lifelong learning. And it will emerge as a completely personalized, adaptive learning environment. Kamsahamnida.